What's up, current and future disc golf addicts? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be taking along on a round at Roy G in Austin, Texas. Today I'm going to be playing the long layouts, and this is stop 2 of my Texas trip. And so I am also playing this course blind, and most of what you're seeing is how I assessed the course and then how I chose to attack it from there. Hole 1, stepping up to the tee. This initial gap was a little bit daunting, but it clearly widened up. So I was just trying to pitch a forehand with my wraith there, trying to get some easy distance and cheat my way up the fairway, maybe even give myself a long birdie or an easy par look, especially since the hole was slightly on the shorter side of what I knew to expect, coming in at just around 600 feet. But these guardian trees were proving to be a challenge, especially off the start here. Leading me with this long pitch up, throwing 5 to get onto the green, and then this tap in for my double bogey to get the round started. Hole 2, perfectly straight shot, very slightly uphill, but almost negligible, shouldn't be affecting your shot too much. The real key here is you have no room for left or right movement, so anything you can go throw perfectly straight. For me, that's typically my leopard 3 that I was just trying to throw, but end up pulling it to the right. And with all of these trees just off the fairway, there is no sneaking up towards the basket, so you have to work for your pars here at Roy G, and I learned that very quickly. Hole 3, coming in at just over 380 feet. My initial focus here, with the ever so slightly left to right shape of the hole, was to try smooth a sidearm, and if I got lucky I could land somewhere short right of the basket and really try pitch up for an easy par. But with that, I ended up trying a little bit too hard actually on the initial tee shot and pulling it left, and a slightly longer par putt than I also would have liked. Hole 4, one of the longer holes here, coming at 708 feet. Really long, daunting fairway here. It feels kind of open when you're standing on the tee pad, and it really feels like you want to push really far up, but that actually ended up getting into my head there, as you could see, and just early releasing it off to the left. Thankfully, a really good safe second shot with a sidearm flex shot back into the fairway perfectly, but I also didn't realize how far off to the right the basket actually was tucked, so I was trying to cheat the corner a little bit and ended up just landing a little left, leaving me with this pitch up, and then again a slightly longer putt than I would have liked, but I was also feeling confident in those putts, so I was giving my circle 2 and just outside a little bit more of an effort than I probably normally would be. Hole 5, multiple options here where you have a clear hyzer gap, you have a clear straight, and a left sidearm hyzer gap. Just a matter of pick your poison, what you're feeling most comfortable with. I chose to go with my Explorer up the middle and just try glide up there, but ended up leaving a little bit low. Hole 6, this was a mind-blowing hole stepping up to the tee, and I never realized how beautiful a disc golf fairway could actually look, looking down this tunnel off to the left. And here my main focus was just do not go left, so I threw my flippy leopard 3 off the tee, ended up leaving it a little bit low, scared to give it that air and really work. And then likewise with my second shot there, just throwing a sidearm wraith, something that I know won't go left, but will push forward if I get the angle just perfect, and then fade out. And with that tricky third shot approach into the green, which actually worked out perfectly, I ended up taking a par on, which is probably one of the more difficult holes on the course. Hole 7, definitely an easier hole, especially after the first initial 6 that you've seen here. A relatively open, just backhand hyzer hole. Surprisingly, a lot of room to work with off to the right that I didn't fully notice, and I actually end up converting for birdie there, giving myself that long look off the tee. Moving on to hole 8. Hole 8, I was actually really impressed that I got this far up the fairway, just trying to really commit on a sidearm hyzer release that is pushing right. But with the initial mistakes that I had made earlier in the round, I really wanted to make sure I hit that hyzer angle rather than end up pulling it flat. Moving on to hole 9, another hole with a lot of trees, again in the middle of the fairway, that to me is something that I'm not used to and was very different trying to play my game. And so this is something that's completely out of my comfort zone, and I found really tricky to try pick the gaps that I was playing for. Most of the time because I was barely off of the fairway, or as you'll see later on, fully off the fairway, to where these gaps are really hard to make your mind up on if you're not on that very clearly defined fairway. And then you leave yourself scrambling like I am here, and then tapping in a bogey there. Hole 10, another very iconic Roy G hole, to where you're looking at that ever so slightly bending fairway. You see a lot of that very slight left to right movement, to where realistically it's whatever you can hit the initial gap with first, and then second priority for me here was just what can I get easy distance with. And so for me that ended up being most of the time a forehand. But during the round, since this was only my second round here in Texas, this was something that I was still trying to work through. And as you can see in this round, it was something that I was struggling with. And now looking after the fact, I probably would have thrown more forehands if I were to ever go back to Roy G. This being a perfect example of where I'm trying to cheat myself a little bit here, trying to throw a smooth hyzer flip with my Sapphire. But realistically, it's a lot more than I was capable of, and I was trying to push my luck really, and do end up getting punished for it, landing off the fairway, to where now I would definitely be relying on a sidearm if I could, just something that pushes straight, not too much finish off to the left or the right. That's really the key here, is no big movements left or right. Hole 12 coming in at only 310 feet. This was a clear opportunity to try pad my score with that, again, very similar forehand as a couple holes ago, where you release something on hyzer, have it push far right, and this even got a skip off to the right, which thankfully put me close enough for this relatively easy birdie. Hole 13, another very daunting hole, stepping up to the tee. This one, although it has those initial trees, there was no light really at the end of the tunnel. It was one clearly defined fairway all the way through, and there was no way to kind of cheat my way around a corner. I was just trying to smooth another leopard 3 here. Try land perfectly straight really, with the focus again being no left to right movement. But I'm just not hitting my gaps with my backhand, and now hindsight being 2020, I really wish I would have thrown more forehands if I could go back. And then my approach, leaving it really low and having to pitch up my berg then to the basket to tap in a bogey, which is really unfortunate with the birdie the previous hole. Hole 14, this is one that's going to be tough to look back on. Again, trying to shape a ever so slight anhyzer out of the hand with my leopard 3 and try give myself a long look, especially this being one of the shorter par 3s. But I am struggling right now trying to hit this, again being ever so slightly off the fairway, not even in the tall grass necessarily, but having to contend with those trees that are on the edge of the fairway. And right now I believe I'm putting for a triple bogey 6 here. And moving on to hole 15, coming in at 699 feet. Another one of those very tricky, ever so slightly bending fairways, to where the pitfall here is you almost want to shape that backhand perfectly and have it land flat, no real skips left or right. but I do not have that level of control over my shots that the fairway, in my opinion, is clearly demanding for. And so you see that I'm again struggling going off the fairway. This particular shot I remember throwing really well, but actually ended up being surprising how far right it drifted, and I do think that there was a little bit of wind there that came into play. And not something that I was expecting to find in the woods, but every once in a while there would be a little bit of wind that would sneak in somewhere that would really catch me off guard. Hole 16, another clear opportunity hole. Tons of space to work with as long as you're not releasing early left. But at this point in the round, I'm really feeling how tiring the round here at Roy G is, especially this being my first time here and taking in all the difficult holes that I'm playing, but then also what I'm looking at there with frankly the beauty of the course too, to where even though it's showing its teeth right now with how I'm playing, it is mesmerizing to look at, and so many cool picture opportunities too, where I just found myself stopping, taking these pictures, and just taking in the course for what it is. Really what I was just trying to do was throw straight and try get somewhere up the fairway, but mainly, like most of these par 4s here, my main focus is on the approaches and trying to get, once I'm within 250 feet or so of the basket, you have to get up and down to avoid those extra strokes. Hole 18, I was just tucked off to the left, which was unfortunate, and I thought I had got this sidearm anhyzer perfect, but just didn't really drift it far enough left and ended up tailing off, hitting one of those early right side trees there. And again, with those approaches that I was just talking about, just unforced errors where I need to be getting up and down. And then an unfortunate ending there with a spit out, putting me to 10 over par at Roy G. If you enjoyed what you saw, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content.